So this is an introduction to Python to get you coding as fast as possible. I don't consider myself smart. I spent most of high school smoking in the boys' room. Professionally, I work as a button presser in a factory that produces very boring things. I made this guide for regular people to learn the code, so break out the bong, grab yourself a coffee, and let's get this thing going. If you have a Windows computer, you will most likely need to download Python. We can get it from python.org/downloads. Once downloaded, we can install it. However, make sure to check the option to enable Python in Path. What this does is allow you to call Python from the Windows command line. If you don't know what the command line is, don't worry, we're about to open it and check our installation. After everything is installed, we should check our installation in the Windows command line. To open the command line, hit the Windows key and type CMD. You are looking for something that looks like a black box. If it is highlighted, you can just hit the Enter key. Otherwise, use the mouse to click on it. You will now see the command prompt. If you are new to this, you can think of this as speaking directly to Windows. We type in commands to tell the computer to do stuff. To demonstrate, let's type the word help. Then hit the Enter key. The Enter key executes the command we type. Your screen will fill up with text. This is what the help command does. It displays a list of all the commands available to us. This is a common utility in programs and consoles or terminals. It is a good practice to type help into a terminal when first encountering it if you aren't familiar with it. We don't need to worry about these for now. Instead, we want to enter a command that is not listed. We want to enter Python. This will open a Python console in the command line. This is essentially a command line that we can code Python in. We aren't actually going to code here. We are just using the Python command to check if it is installed correctly. If your installation went well, you might want to go to the bottom and skip to the next timestamp because I'm going to go over what to do if your installation failed in the next little section of the video. If you know you installed, but it's not coming up, you probably missed the checkbox that says add to path, but don't worry, you just have to go through these steps. We're going to uninstall Python and then reinstall with the correct settings. There are other ways to do it, but this one is the easiest. We just have to open the control panel in Windows, then choose uninstall a program, search Python, and then uninstall it. It may take a few seconds, then we can head back to our download folder and reinstall. This time making sure to check the add to path box. So that'll take a few seconds, and then you can see this is the box that we want to check. And then go back into your command prompt and type Python, and this is what you want to see. If everything is Kino, then we will proceed. We have introduced Python in the command line. Now we need to find a text editor. I definitely recommend Visual Studio Code. It is easy to understand for beginners. It is made by Microsoft, and there is a link in the description. The program will give us an easy way to edit our code. Basically, we could type line by line all of our code into the Python console and run it that way, which would pretty much suck. We could use Notepad to type everything, then run the file from the command line like this, using the Python command and then telling it which file to run. Or we could type our program with hints from an editor and then have a run button to test our script on the side. This is the best option for us as beginners. Let's install VS Code and open it. The settings here really aren't important. I just checked one to make a desktop icon. You don't really have to do that. On startup, it will ask us to open a file. Let's actually make it easy and create a folder on our desktop called Python Bullshit. Let's open this folder in VS Code. If you get a pop-up asking you if you trust the authors of the folder, it is just asking you if you think the folder is safe. Since my RuneScape girlfriend gave me that folder, I know I can trust it with my life, so I accept the responsibility. After opening the folder, we will see it appear on the left-hand side of the screen. Let's click the Make a File link in the center of the page, or click the New File button at the top left near the folder name. We can name the file first.py. The .py at the end of the file name means that it is a Python file. VS Code might recognize that file extension and want to install a Python extension. We will confirm this and install the recommended VS Code extensions. The extensions are basically just add-ons that will give us hints and error marks in our Python code, much like the red squiggles in words when you misspell stuff wrong.
It's coding meantime, there's milkshakes at the end.
Just suck it through the tube. Make sure to have your Neuralink activated.
Now we have the full setup, it is time to get coding. Let's return to our first script and type the line print, parentheses, hello world with quotation marks. We can save the file by pressing Ctrl S and then run the file by pressing the start button in the top right of the screen. We should see the terminal displayed at the bottom with the text hello world. The terminal is similar to using the command line. In fact, we can even take the file location from this line, add Python in front of it, and then run our Python file from the command line. It will print the same result. We will use VS Code to learn because it is easier to see everything here. We will revisit the command line later in this tutorial when we create an application. So let's talk about exactly what we typed. We used the print function followed by a set of parentheses. We will go more into detail on functions, but for now let's just understand that print will print text out to the terminal. Its main usage is to display information to the user. The parentheses hold what is called an argument, which is information the print function needs to be able to, well, print. If I told you to draw something, you would ask, draw what? That's what the print statement is doing here. We tell it to print, and in the parentheses, we tell it what to print. The actual text we want to print is placed inside of the quotation marks. The quotation marks tells the computer not to try and interpret this as Python language. Instead, just accept this as raw text. If we leave out the quotation marks, the computer will get confused and believe that the text here is code. So let's add them back in to make the computer happy. You are probably starting to notice there are a lot of rules to how stuff needs to be typed. These rules are called syntax. Every language, even English, has syntax. We are used to it when we read or write normally, stuff like commas, periods, or capitalization of letters at the beginning of sentences. Humans need these to understand the context of a written passage. Computers need syntax for the same reasons. Computers need to understand exactly what to do with the information given, or they will freak out and act like assholes. I should mention that we can clear the terminal here at any time by typing CLS and hitting enter. This will clear all the text in your terminal so you can see your output a little bit cleaner. Now let's jump right into our coding journey with variables. Variables can be thought of as boxes that hold values, just like the x in an equation from algebra. Let's type x equals 4, print x. So we know that print will print out to the terminal. However, we should notice that using this print command, we don't have any quotation marks around the x. That is because we want the computer to interpret the x as code and not as raw text. The new part for us is the x equals 4. X is the name of the variable. Anytime we want to use this variable, we can just call it by its name. This type of variable is called an integer variable. An integer is just a fancy word for whole numbers, so 1, 0, -1, 25, and -5 are all integers or ints. Numbers not included would be things like 0.5, 30%, half, anything with a decimal point won't be considered an integer. After declaring the variable x, we use the equation sign as an assignment operator, which just means whatever is on the right is now the value of what's on the left. To dumb it down into simple, useful terms, the line right here says x now equals 4. In this line we ask, please print the variable x. When it prints to the screen, our program remembers that x equals 4. This is the first type of variable we will cover. There are 3 more to start. The next is called a float variable, which is a non-whole number. So 1.2, 1.44, 4.32, 3/4, and 0.75 are all floats. So let's make a float variable. We can say y equals 1.342. We can then do another print command to print out the y variable to the screen. Next up, we are going to cover some math. It's not that complicated, so don't worry. Even if you're not good at math, you can still learn this. So we have basically most numbers at our disposal. Let's go over the basic methods to add and stuff like that. We have addition, just like IRL, we use the plus sign here. We have subtraction, so just like IRL, we use the subtraction sign. We have multiplication, where we use the asterisk sign. And we have division, where we use the /. Python still follows the order of operations that we normally follow in math, meaning we can always use parentheses to say do this before anything else. We can use the print statement here with some text to tell us which value is which. We can use the comma to print out more than one value with the same print statement. One thing I should mention more on the syntax side of things is that Python doesn't care about these spaces between the variable names and the equal signs. Generally, if something is on the same line, Python will be okay regardless of white space. However, if I move the value to the next line, the program will crash. Also, we cannot just leave the equal sign assigning nothing. Python doesn't like that. What Python likes is a variable being declared with a value. Now, say we don't want a number. Say we want a letter or a bunch of letters together that make up a word. This type of variable is called a string variable. Let's create a string variable called strang by taking the hello world message and assigning it as the value of our variable strang. If we then use our trusty print message, we can print out our variable to the terminal. We could also just place a string in quotation marks without assigning it to a variable to print out. Even though this text is not assigned to a variable, you may hear it referred to as a string. I forgot to talk about the Boolean variable, which is just a true or false value. We declare it by using the keyword true or false with a capital letter. If we print the Boolean, we can see that it displays the value it was given. Not super useful right now, but it will be necessary later. We have one more type of variable to cover and then we will move on. This is a list, sometimes called an array. Essentially, it is just a list of variables or values. Let's make one now. So to make an array, we just need a name like any other variable. Then we add the assignment operator, the equal sign. We then add brackets, and inside the brackets we can place our variables. We have to separate them out with commas for the array to understand where we want them. In Python arrays, we can mix different types of variables, so we can have strings, floats, and integers all in the same array. Let's print out the array to see what we get. We get pretty much what we typed. We see the variables and the brackets. Very cool, Kanye, thank you. But now maybe we just want to print out the second variable in the list. To get the variable at what we call the second position in the array, we can invoke the name of the array and tell it which position to access with a number inside the brackets to the right of the name. At first, it may be confusing as to why we are attempting to get variables at position 2 if we put a 1 in the brackets. This is because computers start counting at 0. So it plays out like this: 0, 1, 2, 3, and etc. So we just need to keep that in mind. With that, we will continue on from variables. There are more, but for now we can do a lot with what we already have. So we essentially just have a bunch of building blocks now. We can stack them up and print them out, but it really doesn't do much. If we think about our variables as 2x4s, our next step in building a house would be framing. Just like in building a house, we can't just shoot shit together and expect it to work. Hey wise guy, where do you keep all the 2x4s in this joint? We have to have some logic to it, just like walls have logic and patterns to them. When we say logic in computer programming, it basically means the code we typed to get what we got. Let's just start with an example, and that should make it clearer. The first and easiest of all logical operations is the if command. We are essentially checking if something is true. Let's see how this works in an example. First, we use the if keyword. We then type the condition to evaluate. Let's check if the number 1 is equal to the number 2. We have to use double equal signs to tell Python that we want to evaluate the difference between two numbers and not declare a value like a variable. If we use one equal sign, we will get an error. We then add the colon here to tell Python we are done declaring our if statement and its condition. Now the code that comes next will only run if the condition is true. Since 1 is not equal to 2, we will never print anything with that program. Let's try another statement here, and this time we will check if 2 equals 2. This time the condition is correct and we do print an actual message. Along with the if statement, we have the else statement. The else statement will run when the if statement is false. Let's rewrite what we have with an else statement. We don't have to specify a condition with an else statement, we just have to make sure it is following an if statement. We can only have one else statement per if statement, and we also can't just have an else statement by itself. An if-else statement is a good choice if you need to make a binary decision. Binary meaning there are only two options. In a program, this could be used for asking if a user is logged in. If they are logged in, they get to see their information. If they are not, they get sent back to the else part and are sent to the login screen. So now we will reverse the condition and make it true just to see how it works. Now the else command is not run because instead the if statement is true. So this is the main idea of if statements. Let's just go over some accessories we have available to us syntactically. We can check the reverse of a condition by adding an exclamation point in front of the equal sign. This is essentially asking, is this not true? Does 1 not equal 1, which is false, so it won't run. We can also check two things with our if statement by using the AND keyword. Now only if both of these statements are true will the if statement run. We can also use the OR keyword, so now if one or more of the conditions is true, the if statement will run. One more thing to understand about if statements is that we can compare different types of things. We could compare two lists, we could compare two strings or ints or floats, and much more. We will be using the if statement to make decisions in our programs, but let's move on for now to learn about functions. We have already used the print function, which is built into Python. We understand that this prints info to our terminal. We can use another built-in Python function called input to get text from the user. Let's see an example of that. So basically the input function allows us to type something into the terminal to send to our program. So this program first prints to the screen asking the user to enter a value. The next line we declare a variable x. We set x equal to whatever our input function returns. Returning is a programming term for when a function finishes and brings back a value. In this case, the value we bring back is whatever the user typed in. The next fundamental building block in our knowledge will be functions. Functions allow us to separate out code and organize it. This becomes important when you have many lines of code to look through. Separation helps us to troubleshoot areas in our code that have bugs or flaws. It's easier just to show you, so I'll create a function called add_to. So we can start by saying def, which is the keyword to create a function. Then we name the function whatever we want. So we call it add2 because we are going to add two numbers in this function. We then add a set of parentheses and a colon after that. The parentheses will be used in a minute. The colon in Python signifies a new block of code. A colon in Python is usually followed by an indented line like we are about to do now. Everything in this function will be indented one tab over. Leaving a function blank will cause an error. Python wants a line of code underneath the function. If you are plotting stuff out and maybe aren't ready to code that function or section yet, you can use the pass keyword to tell Python to pass over this empty code. With that out of the way, let's make two integer variables and add them, then print the output. So x equals 5, y equals 7, z equals x plus y, print z. We now have our function coded and we want to make a call to it to run the code inside that function. We make a call by using the name of the function with parentheses at the end. Let's run our program and see the result. So our function performs one very specific trick, adding the numbers 5 and 7. This is not very useful, so let's fix it up a bit. For 1, we want to be able to add any numbers we pass in, not just 5 and 7. So let's add two arguments to our function. Arguments are variables that are passed to functions when they are called. So we make two arguments, one called num1 and another called num2. We then simplify our function by just printing the two variables added together. When we call the function, we need to pass in the two numbers we want to add to satisfy the argument requirements. Too few or too many arguments will result in an error. The amount of variables the function receives must be the same amount of variables the function expects. So we can see here, if we forget to add in one of our arguments in our call and we try to run it, we'll get an error missing one required positional argument, num2. So we have this number, we just don't have that one. Let's add in a second one, we'll run it again, and this time we're good. So if I did something like this and added in another number here and tried to send that, we will get this type of error. It takes two positional arguments, but 3 were given. So always make sure to look at that. And then I forgot to mention that when you do get an error, you should always look for this, line 6. This will tell us where the error originates from. And then this will show us the type of error that we are getting. So that can be useful. You can always Control C here and then just Google these. Control C to copy, paste it into Google, and these error codes will always help you figure out what's going on with your code. Another concept we need to cover with the function is the return statement. The return statement will return a value to the call of the function. In this case, if we remove our print statement from our function and add the return keyword, we can send the value back to the place in our code where the function was called from. So let's just print that out instead. If we run this, we can see we get the same result. We can also save the result of our function as a variable and then print it out just like this. Alright, so it's important that I explain a few more things about this function. So we have two numbers that we're passing in right here, but what would happen if we wanted to pass in a string? So we pass in a string that is 5 instead of the integer value of 5. We'll save that and run it. And we have a problem. We cannot add together an integer and a string. So we could make this a string too. We could say 7 here, And then if we run this, everything will be hunky-dory and we get 57. I'm gonna clear this real quick with a CLS. And let's run that again just to show you. It just adds these two together like they were strings. So we could put hello, and then on this one we'll say friend, and we'll add a space right there. We run this, and this, you know, it treats it just like that. It's just adding them together like they were words or like they were letters. So to clarify what we want to pass in, we basically would have to add some typecasts in here. So we can use this right here, int, and this would typecast something as an integer. Or we could also use str, and that would typecast something as a string. Basically, Python's going to do its best to make whatever is in these parentheses into a string. Python's going to do its best to make whatever is in these parentheses into an integer. So that might cause you issues, but if you're just doing simple programs like this and you just need to convert a value, that's kind of how it goes. Alright, so thank you for watching. We're at the end of the video now. I am the average Godot enjoyer. There will be another follow-up video to this where I'll do some more stuff and we'll probably learn more about Python, but that's video 1. And here are my other videos. I make game development content, and then I also do live coding where I'm making a lolcow video game. So if that seems like something you're into, take a look at that. I also wanted to show you another way to continue forward with your Python knowledge. You're going to want to go to CodingBat. So that's this website right here. When you first go to it, you'll see they have Java and Python. You're going to want Python. So they have warm-ups, and then they have basic problems. So if we choose like warm-up 1 and we do sleep in, we take a look at it. The parameter weekday is true if it is a weekday, and the parameter vacation is true if we are on vacation. We sleep in if it is not a weekday or we're on vacation. Return true if we sleep in. So basically what it's saying is it's going to give you this. We're making a function called sleep in. It's going to give you two booleans. One is weekday and one is vacation. Basically, if it's not a weekday, you sleep in, and if it's not a weekday, then you don't sleep in. So we're returning if we sleep in. So if both of them are false, if our weekday and our vacation are false, then we'll say true, we sleep in, because it's the weekend. And then if this one is true, if it is a weekday and it's not the vacation, then we return false. We're not going to sleep in, we got to get up for work. And then if it's false, if it's not a weekday and it's true that we're on vacation, then we're on vacation, we don't have to get up for work. So how do we code that? Well, we remember our if statement. So if it's a weekday, so let's think about that. So we can say if it's not a weekday and it's so if it's not a weekday or it's a vacation, then we return true, right? So it's not a weekday, so meaning it's the weekend, or it's vacation, we return true. And else we return false. And then we say go. And okay, I didn't expect that to pass. I guess that worked a little bit better than I thought. But so yeah, you can make an account. I used to have an account. I can't remember what my login is, but if you do that, it'll save all of these. And then when you like go back to the like the next, and then I think if I go back to Python, see, it'll show you that like one is done. And I think if you save, it'll go through all these and load the stars. So they have like ones for strings. And it'll show you that there are actually a lot more ways to like learn with strings. So Give a string name Bob, return a greeting in the form of hello Bob. So we're getting a name right here. So all we have to do is say, what do we say? Return, I guess, hello plus name. So we just gotta type hello plus name, and let's see. Awesome, so that didn't work. And why didn't it work? We gotta put that here, and then we need a capital. So let's go and run that. So, hello, Bob. Oh, we didn't get the, so we can put another plus sign here, and we're supposed to have a exclamation point. So now we run that. And so yeah, you can come through here and just do all these, and then if you get stuck you can say show hint, and that will do that. So there's yeah, I mean, this is how I learned. Originally I would just go through all these, and they get pretty complex as you go, and they make you think. And there are more websites like this. Another one is LeetCode, but I prefer this one. LeetCode's problems are a little bit more complex. Let's see. LeetCode. So if you really want to trust your shit, you can go here, test your stuff. I don't know. You might have to make an account. Do I really have to sign in? Well, yeah, you do have to make an account for that one. I'm not going to. But oh, maybe I can just go to problems. Here we go. Nice. So this is like a whole website, and they have like a paid version, but it's also free. But you can do like two-sum, and then like these are all problems. So if I go here, it's the same idea. So given an array of integers, nums, and integer return indices of the two. So this website, I think, is it's in C#. That's fucking why. Python, and you're gonna want Python 3. All right. Maybe you just want Python. So here you go. Yeah. This one I think is a little more advanced than the Coding Bat. I would definitely recommend Coding Bat for the beginner, but this one has more advanced problems that are fun to solve. So do whatever you want to do. Have a good one. I'm the average Godot enjoyer. If this content helped you out and helped you learn, that's really what I want to do, is make people learn. And if you want to make video games with Godot, check out my channel. Please like and subscribe. Thank you. Have a great one. I'll be making a follow-up to this, probably using some Pygame modules to make a little game with Python, so that'll be fun.